Hey YouTube, what's up? Thanks for tuning in. Part 4 of my Capo CUB1 build. Frame more or less finished, servos mounted, and the gear shifting mechanism works awesome. All this building was no problem at all and worked absolutely flawlessly. So the gearbox, as already mentioned, I mounted a small Orlando gear motor only for test purposes because I do not have my final motor now, which has 3mm shaft out of the gear. However, it's a little bit too short and don't know if the pinion sits firmly enough or if that's the reason why the gear sounds a little bit strange now. Gearbox looks awesome. First motor drive tests worked fine. The second gearbox with the 3 small gears, so no reduction here anymore. All of this looks absolutely top quality and super nice. Here's the gear shifting mechanism. And the place to mount the servos. Servo mounting is no problem at all. A lot of servos will work. Tested a couple of servos, all of them will work. 9 gram to 20 gram servos of those micro servo sizes. Finally, I used a PTK Votic 9497 MGD high voltage servo as steering servo. For test purposes, I bought this servo already quite a time ago and intended to use it as a steering servo in a small truck, but with high voltage PSC. However, even at 6 volts, specifications say 6.8 kilograms centimeter, 0.09 seconds. If that's true, that's an absolutely awesome servo, but it's not waterproof. And I played around a little bit with the shifting servo. First I used this Servos servo. A lot of other servos would fit. Finally I wasn't happy because the shifting arm was not in parallel position. However, I could change this by using shim below servo pad and mounting plate. I finally now use a super cheap Hobby King servo metal gear. We will see how this works. This doesn't have to be the final servo decision for me. The servos that sit in here now, I will see mainly in the shifting servo. I want a servo that's as silent as possible. There's a huge varieties of servos you can use, and it's not necessary to buy the servos recommended for the Capo CUB. And the links were a pain as always. The first one, the first ball end, you could easily mount using a drill, but the second one, yeah, by hand, a lot more difficult. They look nice and good. They are on a parts tree, but get off easily, even without using clippers. And the links even do have a Capo logo on each link, quite nice. However, the rod ends and the balls inside are not super nice because they sit really firmly inside. You can see this here on those. So if this would be a helicopter, I would rework the rod ends and the ball caps and try to make them move easier. In a small truck, what's quite heavy, I'm not sure if it's necessary, but that's not perfect. As you can see here, they do not move freely. But that's the only thing that I really do not like so much so far. There are some quite funny things. If you go by the manual, of course, and in the video of the manual, the parts are shown in different colors as they are in real. So if you search them in the part bins, you have sometimes to search for different colors. For example, this part here is silver and it's black in the manual video, and this part here is black but it's silver in the manual video. What I really do not like so far, and the only thing I really can complain a little bit, is the screw quality. In detail, the screw quality of the M1.6 hex screws, the socket head screws, all of those, because the openings, they need 1.5 millimeter hex driver, and Capo tells you to use high quality tools, what I do, but the openings are a little bit too small for 1.5 millimeter hex drivers. So I checked all my hex drivers, or nearly all my hex drivers, and nearly all of those are super high quality from German companies, Viha, Vera, and as you can see, and as you saw already probably in my first videos, I did really hard to press the hex in and it doesn't really work. So I tried a ton of my 1.5 millimeter hex drivers. You see that's Viha super high quality, Viha soft finish, Viha electric, that's Vera, another Vera, really high quality German tools, another Viha Pico finish, and none of those. And then I used the caliper and measured the hex, the tips of all those hex drivers, and they are all 1.46 millimeters, more or less exactly. And I even tested a China 1.5 millimeter hex driver from Hobby King Turnigy, that's quite okay, but all of those no. So that's a problem of those M1.6 screws, socket head screws Capo delivers. But I do have one hex driver that should also be super high quality from Stahlwille, German company. I bought already quite a time ago, and that's a failure. So this is too small for 1.5 millimeter hex screws, and I even wanted to send it back, but then didn't send it back and didn't dispose it, so I still have it. And the tip of this does only have 1.42 millimeters, not 1.46 as all the others. And this Stahlwille 1.5 millimeter hex driver, this works perfectly with the Capo 1.6 millimeter socket head screws. So you can't buy this stuff. It's only good luck for me I do have it. And this hex driver does work perfectly, but that's a hex driver that's out of range and normally should be disposed probably. And no, you will not need 1.3 millimeter hex drivers as in the XLS624, for example, for those screws. So here is a 1.3 millimeter hex driver, and that's far too small. So those screws are not really good, and you will probably have to press in your 1.5 millimeter hex driver super hard to make it work. I think Capo should change this, because it's really nearly impossible, and you will damage the screw and maybe even damage the tip of your high quality hex driver using those screws. Stahlwille 1.5 millimeter, too small for correct screws, but perfectly for the Capo screws. However, so far I'm super happy with the build. It's so cool and everything fits really nicely and perfectly, and the shifting mechanism under load for first and second gear works so awesome. Check this out. Second gear, first gear. Maybe you can see it here on the shaft, and no problem at all. Wow, wow, wow. This shifting mechanism is awesome. So that's it for this video, short updates, and in the next video I will mount the axles, the drive shafts and the differential gear shifting mechanism, and we will see if this works as awesome as the gear 1, gear 2, high speed, low speed gear shifting mechanisms. Thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next video. I'll be back.